This week, Mother Teresa gets a canonization date, the Pope Emeritus gives a rare interview, and Pope Francis is teaching us how to pray. We break down the lesson. Hello and welcome to another edition of Vatican Connections. There's a lot going on, so let's take a look. Mother Teresa will be canonized September 4th at the Vatican. Pope Francis met with the College of Cardinals on Tuesday to set the date. At the same time, the Pope and the Cardinals set the date for the canonization of 4 other blesseds. So here we go. On June 5th, Pope Francis will canonize Blessed Stanislaw Papczyński of Poland and Blessed Mary Elizabeth Hesselbad of Sweden. Then, on October 16th, he will canonize the man known as Argentina's gaucho priest, José Brochero, and Blessed José Sanchez del Rio of Mexico. Now, at that same consistory, Pope Francis talked to the cardinals for 50 minutes, according to the Vatican. However, no details have been released about what he said to the cardinals. This summer, World Youth Day will be held in Krakow, Poland. The Vatican has officially confirmed that Pope Francis will attend, and he will take time to visit some other places in that country. Now, the Holy Father will arrive in Poland on July 27th and leave July 31st. During that time, he will visit Częstochowa, the Sanctuary of Divine Mercy, and the Auschwitz death camp. He will also meet with participants of World Youth Day and lead the Way of the Cross, the prayer vigil, and of course, celebrate the closing Mass. Now, pilgrims will also be able to visit the museum at the former death camp. Here's more from the organizing team in Krakow about visiting the museum and taking part in the Youth Festival.
More than 225,000 pilgrims coming to Poland next July have registered to visit the Auschwitz Museum. From July 20th to the 28th and August 1st to 3rd, the Auschwitz Museum will be open exclusively to World Youth Day participants. Those pilgrims who wish to visit the former Nazi concentration camp must register in advance. More than 75,000 entries are still available. For more information, please check the website. The media accreditation process for the coverage of World Youth Day 2016 and the visit of Pope Francis to Poland has begun. The announcement was made this week at a press conference with the Archbishop of Krakow, Cardinal Stanisław Dziwisz. The accreditation will take place exclusively online and will close on June 24th. Are you interested in participating in the Youth Festival? You now have until the end of March to register your presentations. Please check our website for more information. That was World Youth Day Minute, with this week's news from the local organizing committee here in Krakow. Remember to keep on praying for us.
A new book released this month features an interview with Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. The book, which is titled By Means of Faith, the Doctrine of Justification, and the Experience of God in Church Preaching and Spiritual Exercises, long title, features contributions by various theologians and professors, as well as an interview with the retired pontiff done by Jesuit theologian Jacques Servet. In the interview, Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI speaks about his own university studies, his theological research, and he refers to his time as the head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, as well as his book series, Jesus of Nazareth. Now, reviewers say that in the interview, he speaks not so much as retired pope, but as Professor Ratzinger. On a different note, the so-called Vatileaks II trial has resumed at the Vatican, but not for very long. Now, Monsignor Lucio Vallejo Balda, Francesca Sciauqui, and Emiliano Fittipaldi have been in court every day this week. Monsignor Vallejo Balda has testified that he did pass several documents to the 2 Italian journalists, Fittipaldi and Gianluigi Nuzzi, and he gave Nuzzi 5 pages of passwords in order to access online documents. Monsignor Balda said he did so because he felt threatened by Ms. Sciauqui, and he also produced a WhatsApp message in which she said, "I will destroy you in all the newspapers, and you know I can do that." He also said that Miss Sciacqui told him she was a spy and that he believes she might have ties to the mafia. Now, Emiliano Fittipaldi eventually took the stand, saying he did receive documents from Monsignor Balda, but they were of little journalistic value. The trial has now been put on hold until April 6th because doctors have ordered Miss Sciacqui, who is pregnant, to go on total bed rest for 20 days. In France, Cardinal Philippe Barbarin is being accused of covering up for 2 priests who sexually abused young people. Prosecutors in Lyon have laid preliminary charges against the cardinal and 5 other people for what's called non-denunciation of a crime. Now, a man who says he was abused by Father Bernard Prénaud between 1986 and 1991 came forward only in 2009 after a doctor urged him to report what had happened to him as a young Boy Scout. The man says he told Cardinal Barbarin about the abuse, and he claims that the cardinal apologized for the actions of that priest, but said there was nothing to do since the priest was already serving a sentence for exhibitionism. Now, another man has since come forward saying he told the cardinal in 2009 as well about abuse he suffered at the hands of a different priest, Father Jérôme Biloud, and although the cardinal apologized, the priest was not removed from ministry. Now, Cardinal Barbarin says he has never covered up pedophilia, so we'll be keeping our eye on this in the days and weeks to come. From the very first moments of Pope Francis's pontificate, we understood that this is a pope unlike any other. The way he interacts with people, the way he leads prayers, the way he teaches at general audiences, the way he gets millions of people to repeat after him and imagine what he's saying. Now, some say that this is just a style choice on purpose to appear more personable and change the image of the Church. But others realize that this is actually something much deeper. It's part of his Jesuit formation, his Ignatian formation, and it's all part of something that we call Ignatian contemplation, the basics of the Ignatian spiritual exercises and way of prayer. Joining me to talk more about this is Father James Martin. He is a Jesuit, one of the Pope's confreres, a prolific author, and the editor-at-large of America Magazine. Father James, this is the first Pope we've seen asking crowds of thousands to imagine a gospel scene as he describes it, or being able to get millions of young people to repeat after him whatever he says. Skeptics say this is just a style thing, but it's not. Tell us, where do these things come from?
Sure. Well, the style really is substance in this case, and the style that he is using, in particular, in terms of the way he is inviting people to pray, is the Jesuit model of prayer. It's imagining yourself in a scene, and so I think that everybody can realize that just the way he does things, the tone, the method, and even what he highlights is really substantial. So you can't dismiss it as merely style.
Ignatius of Loyola developed this method of praying and contemplating in the 1500s. So why do we still have this? Why does it work so well?
Well, first of all, I should say that Ignatius probably didn't invent it. He popularized it. Francis of Assisi, for example, asked us to imagine ourselves in the creche, in the Christmas scene, when he more or less invented Christmas cribs. But Ignatius really gave it a lot of form in the spiritual exercises. And you're right, you imagine yourself in the scene as vividly as possible, saying to yourself, what might I see? What might I hear, feel, touch, smell? And the idea is that by imagining yourself in a scripture scene, it becomes your own, and that God speaks to you in a particular way, in a personal way, through that scripture scene. So the difference is my telling you this is the message of this gospel passage, the woman caught in adultery, and you're thinking about it and imagining yourself there and having something strike you, and accepting the fact that what strikes you is really God communicating with you. So it's God communicating with you in a personal way through a particular scripture passage through your imagination. That's the main technique, I would say. And the spiritual exercises really is a 4-week plan for prayer that invites you into the whole life of Christ. And so it's from the beginning until the end, as well as some meditations in between that look at things like your sinfulness and the incarnation and things like that. But one of the other techniques he has is called a colloquy, or a conversation, where you imagine yourself speaking with Jesus, as Ignatius says, one friend to another. So it's a very familiar way of talking to Jesus, and you sometimes do these after those imaginative prayer techniques. You imagine yourself in a scripture scene, and then you say to Jesus, "This is what I felt," and you see if Jesus in your prayer might want to say something back to you.
Now, for those who are intrigued or stirred by the way that Pope Francis prays, what can you suggest? How can we work some basic Ignatian contemplation into our daily prayer lives?
Sure, there are tons of resources. The first thing would be to just try it yourself and trust that God can work through your imagination. I have a book out there called The Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything, and I talk about easy ways of doing Ignatian contemplation. So the first step is try it on your own, see where it goes. The second step might be to do a retreat at a Jesuit retreat house, or a retreat house that focuses on Ignatian spirituality. And then the third step might be to find a spiritual director to help you with your prayer. But really, it is accessible to everyone. I mean, you saw Pope Francis doing that in the square during the Angelus, and people don't need any special training to pray.
My last question for you, which is unrelated to prayer. You recently released a book that is a novel. It's fiction, unlike your other books. Tell us about that briefly.
Sure. It's the story of a woman who is in her 40s whose son dies at age 13, and she's grieving his loss, and she, through a number of circumstances, meets the head of a Trappist monastery, the abbot, in suburban Philadelphia. And through conversations, he leads her to see how God is already in her life. So it's her story of discovery. It's his story of looking at his vocation. There's a third character in the book who's a handyman, who is kind of the connection between the two of them. And really, actually, in the end, it is a story about prayer. It's a story about how she encounters God through prayer. So through fiction and through a novel, I want to sort of invite people into that world of prayer.
Great, thank you so much. That was Father James Martin, Jesuit author and priest, talking to us about what we can learn from Pope Francis about prayer.
Fratelli e sorelle, buonasera. Voi sapete che il dovere del conclave era di dare un vescovo a Roma. Sembra che i miei fratelli cardinali sono andati a prenderlo quasi alla fine del mondo, ma siamo qui. Vi ringrazio l'accoglienza, la comunità diocesana di Roma, al suo vescovo. Grazie. E adesso vorrei dare la benedizione, ma prima vi chiedo un favore. Prima che il vescovo benedica il popolo, vi chiedo che voi pregate al Signore perché mi benedica la preghiera del popolo, chiedendo la benedizione per il suo vescovo. Facciamo in silenzio questa preghiera di voi su di me. Adesso vi darò la benedizione a voi e a tutto il mondo, a tutti gli uomini e donne di buona volontà.
Let's take a look now at what Pope Francis has been doing this week. Over the weekend, the Holy Father held a special Saturday general audience. Now, this is one of his initiatives for the Jubilee year. CNS has details.
Prima di morire e risorgere per noi, Gesù ha compiuto un gesto che si è scolpito nella memoria dei discepoli, la lavanda dei piedi. Un gesto inatteso e sconvolgente al punto che Pietro non voleva accettarlo. Vorrei soffermarmi sulle parole finali di Gesù. Capite quello che ho fatto per voi? Se io, Signore e Maestro, ho lavato i piedi a voi, anche voi dovete lavare i piedi gli uni agli altri. In questo modo Gesù indica ai suoi discepoli il servizio come la via da percorrere per vivere la fede in Lui e dare testimonianza del suo amore. L'amore non sono parole, sono opere, è servizio. Un servizio umile, fatto nel silenzio, nel nascondimento, come Gesù stesso ha detto, non sappia la tua sinistra ciò che fa la tua destra. Si esprime nella condivisione dei beni materiali, perché nessuno sia nel bisogno. Questo della condivisione e della dedizione a chi è nel bisogno è uno stile di vita che Dio suggerisce anche a molti non cristiani come via di autentica umanità.
On Sunday, Pope Francis led the Angelus, and at the end, he gave out a special gift, pocket editions of the Gospel of Luke. They were distributed to the faithful with the help of retired employees from the phone company. On Monday, Pope Francis had a couple of private audiences. One was with Father Michael Perry, the Minister General of the Franciscans. The other was with the Italian director Franco Zeffirelli. Now, after leaving the Santa Marta guest house, Zeffirelli told journalists that he was incredibly moved by the meeting, and he said Pope Francis's actions show that the key to love is about being close to people. Zeffirelli directed the film Jesus of Nazareth and Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. Now, there is no word as to why or how the audience came about, but Italian media report that Zeffirelli was invited to meet the Pope. Wednesday was the usual regular general audience, and Catholic News Service has details.
Quante volte abbiamo sentito questa parola? Dio si è dimenticato di me. Tante volte persone che soffrono e si sentono abbandonate. E quanti nostri fratelli invece stanno vivendo in questo tempo una reale e drammatica situazione di esilio, lontani dalla loro patria, con negli occhi ancora le macerie delle loro case, nel cuore la paura e spesso, purtroppo, il dolore per la perdita di persone care. In questi casi uno può chiedersi dov'è Dio? Come è possibile che tanta sofferenza possa abbattersi su uomini, donne e bambini innocenti e che anche quando cercano di entrare in altra parte gli chiudono la porta e sono lì al confine perché tante porte e tanti cuori sono chiuse. I migranti di oggi che soffrono all'aria, senza cibo e non possono entrare, non sentono l'accoglienza. A me piace tanto sentire quando vedo le nazioni, i governanti che aprono il cuore e aprono le porte.
On Thursday, Pope Francis met with young people participating in Harvard's Model United Nations. He told the university students, "I hope this experience will lead you to appreciate the need for and the value of structures of cooperation and solidarity which have been forged by the international community over many years. These structures are especially effective when they are directed to the service of the most vulnerable and marginalized in our world. I pray that the United Nations and each individual member state may always be ordered to such service and care." Now, he went on to say that the greatest part of their meeting in Rome was not necessarily the academic aspect, but the chance to meet people from around the world from different backgrounds with different challenges and talents. And also on Thursday, Pope Francis received the new president of Portugal in an audience. Among other things, they discussed the debate that's going on in that country around human life issues like euthanasia. It is widely expected that Pope Francis will actually visit Fatima in 2017 for the 100th anniversary of the Marian apparitions there. However, the Vatican has not officially confirmed that trip yet. Let's take a look now at the resignations and nominations that happened this week. In France, Pope Francis has accepted the resignation of Archbishop Hippolyte Simon of Clermont. Archbishop Simon is only 72 and has resigned for health reasons. He has served as the vice president of the French Bishops' Conference, and he represented France on the European Episcopal Commission. In Spain, Father Luis Ángel Berzal has been named Bishop of Mondonedo Ferrol. He is a Claretian priest, and he currently serves as Superior General of the Claretians in Spain and the President of the Spanish Confederation of Religious. In Cameroon, Pope Francis created a new diocese. It's called the Diocese of Kumba and has almost 600,000 Catholics. Bishop Agapitus Nifon will move from being auxiliary of Bambenda to Bishop of Kumba. And in Venezuela, Father Victor Basabe has been made Bishop of San Felipe. He is currently the Secretary General of the Bishops' Conference of Venezuela, and so very well versed in what's going on in that country, especially between the political and church realms in the last few years. Well, that's all for this week's edition of Vatican Connections. Now, next week is Holy Week, and we will be preempted by the Triduum liturgies from the Vatican. We'll be back with you, though, right after Easter. Until then, you can follow us on Twitter, check our blog for regular updates, or watch us on demand on Roku TV. From everyone here, thanks for watching. Have a very blessed Holy Week.